Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt on the radio, on podcasts, on Facebook Live, on YouTube, and on talklawradio.com. We have a special guest today, Agustin Mier, and co-host Kirk Harrison.
Hey, everybody.
We've been talking about Mr. Mier's childhood as he fled Cuba in the 60s, and he had to stay in a camp for kids. And so if you missed that part of the show, just look us up on YouTube, because I think Wednesday we'll have the YouTube video of that segment out. So just search for Talk Law Radio on YouTube, and you can find all kinds of videos there to occupy your time.
I'm going to tell you, I had never heard of this before, okay? I didn't know what was going on, and then as Todd had told me this was coming up, did some research for it, and it was amazing to learn that this went on, because I guarantee you most people don't know that this happened, okay, unless you lived down in Miami. You know, by the way, I just went to Miami and caught Carlos Santana in concert like 3 weeks ago. It was great.
That's awesome.
And he was one of my all-time favorites. Anyhow, when you started talking about snakes and all that kind of stuff, well, growing up in South Louisiana, you know, I can relate, okay? You had to watch, you got aware of your surrounding.
Exactly.
And what you were stepping on, because it might not be a stick.
Right, exactly.
So I can appreciate that, but getting this history is something, because it is a continuous history. It's not just this one-time event. This was like the beginning of people coming from Cuba to the United States, and then it grew.
In 59 is when Fidel Castro seized power, right? And so that affected your parents. Tell us a little bit about how that affected your parents.
My father was an accountant, CPA. He had three offices in different states. And then since Castro took over, you don't need accountants anymore, because everything was government control.
Okay.
All the businesses closed. So what he did was, in the black market, he built a cosmetic factory for ladies and men.
Okay.
And he will buy the products, in the black market.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how he was able to, survive. But he was very successful.
And so your parents stayed in Cuba when they sent you and your sister to the United States.
Right, yeah.
And so why was that? Why did your mom and dad stay behind?
Because they thought it was going to be over in a couple of years, and they didn't want to lose what they had.
Yeah.
So they stayed behind, but once they found out that they were going to be there, forever, that's when they decided to leave.
And your mom had some business or properties too, right?
Yes. Well, my grandfather, my mother was a teacher.
Oh, okay.
She got her doctor's degree in education in Havana.
All right.
So that's what she did.
Did they eventually make their way to Florida to be with you and your sister?
Yes. They came through 6 years later. So I came in 61. They came like in 67 through Mexico.
Okay.
And then once they were in Mexico, the sons and daughters could claim them to come to the States.
Okay.
So that's what happened. So they waited in Mexico until they got all the papers and everything to come to the States.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your education and the work that you finally did.
Sure. Okay. So in Cuba, we lived in a compound, which means very private.
Mm-hmm.
And we had guards also patrolling the streets. It was a very small, place. But inside there was a private school. And it was called Joffrey School, like, in English.
Okay.
So half of the classes were in Spanish and the other half were in English.
Okay.
So when I came to the States,
You were lucky.
yeah, I mean, I didn't speak much, but I could understand a lot more than the other kids.
Yeah.
So, and that's what, it helped me a lot. So,
Once you got out of the camp, you had spoken about you're furthering your education. You had stayed with some relatives or people that your family knew.
right.
And then where did you go from there?
Well, that's when, from that camp, I was moved to another. It wasn't a camp. It was 40 kids that lived with Jesuit priests in Miami. This was not in the
In the jungle.
camp, right? In the jungle. So
More snakes.
and we went to Jesuit high school.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So, and there, I was there for about a year. And then my sister, she had moved to Tampa with her foster parents. So she requested me to go to Tampa, not to live with her because they didn't have space, that family. So I went to live with another couple, a Cuban old couple, that and there were two of us, two kids with a family. So, and we were in Tampa until my parents came over.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, what happened was, remember, I'm 13.
Yeah.
They see me when I'm close to 19.
Right. You
So-
changed a lot.
When we went to the airport to pick them up, they went right by me. They didn't recognize me.
That's what I say. Yeah, it's a big change.
So I turned around. I go, Dad, it's me. And he turned around and he looked from my feet all the way up to my head, trying to visualize, what he had left
Right.
and what I was then. And it was funny. I'll never forget that.
They probably had to be heartbroken because they missed
Right.
that part of your life. And I know for a father, and
Right.
mother especially,
Yeah.
to see her son as a full-grown man when he left as a 13-year-old child, that's got to be
Right.
traumatic in its own right.
Right.
And so after they got to Florida, did you go off to college then?
I was finished. I went to college, and then from college, that's when I went to Spain, to medical school.
Oh, you went to medical school in Spain.
Spain, right?
Okay.
So I got my BS degree and everything from Spain.
Okay.
So I went into medical, and after my fourth year, I found out that it wasn't for me.
Right.
So that's when I came back to the States, and I was in Spain 9 years.
Wow.
Okay.
So
Tell us about your work on the space shuttle, if you can.
That's good.
our group, our department,
You came back to Florida.
right,
And so what city were you in?
in St. Petersburg.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So, and there in St. Petersburg, there was a company, Honeywell, that had like a compound, like 8,
Like a military base type.
kind of,
Buildings, but nicer.
right, yeah, exactly. And
Military's not nice.
There was security everywhere, in every door, in the hallways. I mean, everywhere.
How did you get this opportunity?
From my brother-in-law, he was already working there.
Oh, okay.
So he was the one that introduced me to, and I was, accepted.
And they were interested in your science education.
You're right.
Okay.
Wow.
So, and then that was the best job that I ever had. I mean, because everything was so satisfying, and everything was all military avionics.
You were working on microprocessing. What did you call
building parts in microelectronics.
Okay.
And my first lab was the thick film lab, because everything was done with the paste, printing.
Mm-hmm.
The thin film lab is done with a vapor deposition in a vacuum. That was, another way of, and the sizes were, you can imagine, in thick film, it was microns. In thin film, it was angstroms. You couldn't even see it.
Wow.
So it's two completely different methods of putting, the artwork, the conductors and everything, because everything was under.
This was kind of like laying the groundwork for eventually the same thing what computers would do.
Right.
This was really the beginning of all that.
Right.
And as you were saying, satisfying, it's got to be very satisfying when you're sitting there and all of a sudden you see your work that you pitched in goes up into space. I understand that. That's a sense of accomplishment.
Right.
That's incredible.
So it was such a small batch that I was the only one that got to work on that part to build for the space shuttle. So once I was done, I gave the parts to the next person, and they continue, with their build. So
that you just listen to what you're talking about, okay? You hear people saying, "Oh, I had such a hard childhood," and all this kind of stuff. This has got to be inspirational to tell people. If you stay at it, you keep working at it, you really work with what you're given, which is basically your mind and yourself. You can accomplish things, incredible things. You started from -0.
Exactly.
Okay? And it's inspiring for me, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are thinking the same thing, that, hey, hopefully young people are listening here. Don't be hopeless, okay? Don't give up. You got to lean in.
Exactly.
And then before you know it, something pops up, you with your in-law there that helped you get this job, and next thing you know, here you are working on a space shuttle.
Right.
That's a dream.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Tell us about your experience when you got to see the shuttle launch. Do you remember what year that was or what shuttle that was?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
What was it like?
It was an experience that I will never forget. Because by working in the space shuttle at Honeywell, my boss gave me a VIP pass, and I was able to go to where most of the people didn't get to go, closer to the launch. And it was an experience. By the way, all that area of Cape Canaveral is full of gators. So if you try to go to Cape Canaveral to do something, you're not going to make it, because there's thousands of them, and they do that on purpose.
Unpaid guards.
Exactly. On purpose they do that.
Yeah.
So, and you had to, there were fences, but you could see them. Sunbathing.
They're part of the alligator union.
So, and the launches and everything didn't bother them. They were already used to it.
Yeah.
Because they were right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And after that, we just came back to St. Petersburg. But it was something that
Wow.
seeing this.
All right, well, we got to take another break. We've been talking with Agustin Mier about his experience as a child, leaving Cuba, coming to the United States, getting his education in Spain, coming back to the United States again, and working on the space shuttle. Stay tuned, there's more.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Each week, attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the Ten Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.